In this section, we'll look some more at solving equations when we have fractions involved. The idea is exactly the same as what we've been doing. So in this problem, we have 1/9 times x. So the opposite of that would be to divide both sides by 1/9. That will leave x on the left. And on the right, we have 7 divided by 1/9. Now remember that with fractions, we have to keep the first fraction. Keep the first fraction, change division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction, so that would be 9/1. And then we can multiply straight across. So we have 7 times 9 is 63, 1 times 1 is 1, and 63/1 is 63. So x equals 63. You could also put this in your calculator as just 7 divided by 1/9 using your fraction button. So let's look at this. This is 16/5 equals 8x. Remember to look at the side that has the x. Here's our x over here, and it's 8 times x, so we want to divide by 8. Be real careful that you look where your x is, because that's, or letter, that's what determines what you do. So we need to keep the order the same, but here we have 16/5 divided by 8. So again, we change division to multiplication. This was really 8/1, so we flip it and it becomes 1/8. We can do some simplifying right here. We can divide by 8, which gives us a 2 on the top here and a 1 on the bottom here. Multiply straight across and we get 2/5. So this side becomes 2/5 equals x. Or you can write x equals 2/5. In this problem, we have negative x divide by 3. So the opposite operation of division is multiplication. So we'll multiply both sides by 3. That leaves us with negative x still on the left and negative 24 on the right. Remember, we talked about this. If we want to change this sign, then we need to change this sign. So we're going to just change them both to positive, and we get x equals 24. Okay, in this problem, we want to, first of all, we have to, it says minus 1/4, so we're going to add 1/4 to both sides. That'll leave us with 11/2 x equals. And on the right-hand side, we have 5/2 plus 1/4. So we need to get a common denominator. We'll multiply the top and the bottom by 2. So we have 10/4 plus 1/4, which gives us 11/4. Then this is multiplication, so we'll divide by 11/2 on both sides, which will leave us with x. So over here we have 11/4 divided by 11/2. We keep the first fraction, change division to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction, so we get 2/11. We can do some simplifying here. We can divide both of these by 11, which will give us a 1 on top here and a 1 on the bottom here. And these we can divide by 2, which will give us a 2 on the top here. 2 divided by 2 is a 1 on the top here, and 4 divided by 2 is a 2 on the bottom here. Multiply straight across, we get 1/2, and that's our answer. X is 1/2. Now here's another way of dealing with an equation that has a lot of fractions in it. A lot of times this is easier. This is a lot like those complex fractions we did before. We have 4 denominators. We have a 5, a 3, a 6, and a 5. We don't need to write that 5 twice, even though it's there twice. Now this first 5 is already factored as a prime factor. Same with the 3, but the 6 is 2 times 3. So to find our LCD, this is a common pair, so we're only going to list that once. We're going to list a 2, a 3, and a 5. So we have 6 times 5, which is 30. So we're going to use 30 as our LCD. So what we'll do is we'll take each of our fractions and we're going to multiply the fraction by 30 over 1. So we have plus, and then 30 over 1 times 14/3 equals 30 over 1 times 41 over 6 plus 30 over 1 times 2/5 y. Now what happens here, maybe I should put parentheses around these so that we can see that it's multiplication. This 5 on the bottom goes into that 30 6 times. So we're dividing both of them by 5, reducing diagonally. So here I have 6 times a negative 11, which gives me negative 66y. Then here, 3 goes into 30 10 times, reducing diagonally. So I have 10 times 14, which is 140. Again, on the bottom, we're just left with 1. We don't have to write the 1s on the bottom. The next fraction, we have 6 goes into 30 5 times. And again, it leaves us 1s in the bottom. We don't have to write it. So we do 5 times 41, and we get 205. And then finally, we have 5 goes into 30 6 times. Gets rid of our denominator. 6 times 2 is 12y. So the really nice thing at this point is that we now no longer have fractions in our problem. So we can do this just like we did before. We'll have a letter side and a number side. So I'm going to subtract 140 from both sides to get rid of this. Leaves me with negative 66y over here. 205 minus 140 is 65. I'll subtract 12y over here to get rid of it. So that's negative 66 minus 12 is negative 78y. And let me get a little bit more room over here. So we have negative 78y equals 65. So then we need to divide both sides by negative 78. And we end up with y equals negative 65 over 78. That looks messy, but that's the right answer. So here's one more problem. We'll do this the same way we did the last problem. So we have 12, and 12 factors is 4 times 3, or 4 can be 2 times 2 times 3. 15 is 3 times 5. So when we get our LCD, we're only going to write that 3 once. So we have 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. And that's 60. So we're going to take 60 over 1 times 7x minus 14 over 12 equals 60 over 1 times, let me again give us a little bit more room, times 11x minus 13 over 15. Now I have to put the tops of these in parentheses because of the minuses. Because there's more than one term there, it has to be in parentheses to show those terms go together. So 12 will go into 60. If we take 60 divided by 12, it goes in 5 times. So the left side's left with 5 times 7x minus 14. And on the right-hand side, 15 goes into 64 times, so we're left with 4 times 11x minus 13. Now we need to take that 5 times both of those pieces. It's times everything that's on top. So we get 35x, and then 5 times 14 is 70. 4 times 11 is 44x, and then 4 times 13 is 52. So we're going to add 70 to both sides. This now is plain old equation solving like we've done several times. Negative 52 plus 70 is 18. Then we want to subtract 44x. So 35 minus 44 is negative 9. So we have negative 9x equals 18. That's nice because we can divide both sides by a negative 9. And we get x is equal to a negative 2.